drop your drawers and trim your bush. All those bits hovering outside your front door or back door or side door, your balconies and footpaths and window ledges and, at the time of writing this book, weed-ridden boat launch areas, are way too much to tackle in depth at this juncture in time, being as this is meant to be a action-packed Kickstarter of a book that encourages you to recognize and embrace and use your inner slob. But by now I have confidence in the fact that you know a little look-see around will make things pretty clear pretty fast. And if they aren't, well, just get that big arse of yours down the garden center or the supermarket, or better still, keep it local. Those little shops in our neighborhoods need to keep going, otherwise it's all psycho bland world ahead of us. And no matter how many quaint little delicatessen sections and ye old style coffee sections and surprisingly well-stocked organic sections and delightfully colorful kitty sections there are in the big chains, variety breeds individuality and choice. And individuality and choice is what us slobs are all about, babies. Pull out some supplies and products and toss them in your trolley and just get down to it. Actually, for the sake of possible misinterpretation, I better add that you pay first, because although a little devil in me finds the thought mildly amusing, I'm not prepared to write The Spiritual Slob in Prison, because I may be a smartass, but I'm not a badass, and only advocate the most honorable of movements through this world. Meanwhile, whatever aisle you do find that arse of yours standing in, remember that everything around you is a mini Big Bang of mind and motion. I, myself, being a well-intentioned but often hypocritical despite myself slob, lacking an immaculate carbon footprint and very often the willpower to take even my own impeccable Virgoan advice, in fact, do more than once in a while take a trip to one of the bigger supermarkets when I'm in America and just stand, gazing at the condiment section and sucking up the sheer energy of choice and abundance and delicious consumerism standing before me, shelf upon shelf, looming over me like a Warhol painting on crack. And even though they've ditched the only brand of brown sauce worth a damn in favor of the pale-tasting rubbish of their own super chains version, I can't help but be in awe of creation. I love the fact that there are people sitting around design tables all around the world agreeing that they absolutely must put onto the market some cheap pig-shaped speakers, which I have, or those weirdly printed gay guy underpants with penis padding, which I don't have, or coffee cups with dumb sayings like, "I'm a spiritual slob," or yet another style of hot sauce. I stand weeping at the beauty and complexity and overwhelmingness of the universe of supermarkets and small markets and confusing, unexpected carbon footprints and vegetation mixed with cow DNA and the sheer choices we have to navigate from day one to day dot when we pack it all up and go off to other adventures. And I weep at the relief of knowing that all I have to do to be the perfectly imperfect being I was meant to be is to march to the right aisle, scoop up a bunch of stuff, and get home to weed and pull and scrape and scour at the speed and intent with which I'm prepared to do it, which in itself is a massive meditation far more effective than dreaming of lotus flowers and shit like that. So while I'm not going to enter into the world of the spiritual slob garden in detail, yet, I will tell you that if you decide to trim your hedge in the shape of a pig like I did recently, and the pig looks like it's missing one leg and has some massive facial deformity and an over-fat body and a withered, sickly-looking tail, it's probably not doing the energy of your world a whole lot of good, and best just be left in all its glorious bushness until you speak to one another and agree on which way you, the bush, and your hedge trimmers can best combine your talents. You might have guessed by now that I've only clustered together the would-be subjects of gardening and your drawers for the sake of the personal hilarity of the title. And by now you know and have accepted that that's the kind of guy I am, taking my free fall of ideas and advice in the same manner as that slipstream in which our lives unfold and the world whirls around us. However, on a very tentative link concerning vegetation, I will reveal that only 2 days ago my good friend Sabrina texted me to reveal she discovered a runner bean in her brassiere. I've yet to ask her if she was actually wearing the brassiere at the time, which would take it to a whole other dimension. Amusing though it might be to imagine her walking around town unaware that a not insignificantly sized vegetable was rustling about inside her delicates, I can only think that it instead found its way into her knicker drawer. Don't ask me how. I have an imagination large enough to write a whole book about the possible various journeys a runner bean could make in order to find its way into a brassiere, but not the stamina to bother right now. I'd say that a good rummage through your drawers from time to time is an absolute necessity, and sometimes, such as last week when I found a 20-pound note crumpled up amongst my socks, rewarding in ways you didn't even expect. I cast my mind back to the beginning of this journey into spiritual slobdom, to those dismal, dismantled offices and the drawers of their once workers and now displaced mystery beings whose personalities and energies could be deciphered like Mesopotamian cuneiform in a putrid potpourri of scrunched and layered and festering and melted items. As with these ghostly personas, there is always that one drawer with everything shoved inside, waiting for future never moments when all those things find their true places and functions that in actuality do not exist. We pretend in this action of shutting away to be settling these things into a significant halfway house, like an Ellis Island for the dislocated, ready at some stage to be recognized, itemized, and positioned, but never really doing anything other than piling up until the drawer sticks, forcing us to shuffle them about and spread things around so that other things can be shoved in there, awaiting their sentences. Like a petri dish full of potentially scary microorganisms, drawers such as this can be the Pandora's boxes that, instead of unleashing the nasties, actually set us free. More often than not, getting rid of the little don't-know-where-they-come-from beads and gum containers with the single stick of not-so-fresh-anymore gum, and the business cards of people you can't remember who the fuck they are, and pens that don't work, and staples, and rubber bands, and lip balm containers, and crapola you don't recognize, leads to unleashing a whole lot of random bugging you in the back of your brain rubbish. You'll be surprised how liberating chucking 3/4 of that mulch is. Although at first it can be an irritating and traumatizing action, one very often filled with self-doubt. Did I just unwittingly chuck the most important business card that's ever been handed to me? Or will I discover that sort of looks broken plastic thingy is the epicentral necessary hub of some other plastic thingy I've stashed somewhere else and can't remember where it is but really, really need? There's often a weird sense of inadequacy and guilt at not being able to quite pinpoint where these objects should have gone, and while you're still ignoring them. But in the end, the rule of thumb is, unless it's delightfully ornamental or being significantly and truthfully saved for some pending special moment, it's useless shit that bogs you down like plankton lacking a remora. And I put that word in here without explanation, so you have to pause now and look it up. And part of that is because this book is very dense, and you need a forced break from time to time. Otherwise, you just think you're picking up what I'm laying down, or not. And part of it is because I personally hate it when I have to look up a word in the middle of a sentence, and I have enough evil in me to have a giggle at being able to do that to you right now. Though I promise it's my once only time, and I won't be getting my jollies that way again. And at any rate, we're almost done, so stick with me.